introduce yourself?
Sure. My name is Lucas. I live in a rural town in Vermont. I'm a homesteader. I work in local government and make brooms as well.
Okay. And the first question is, where can our listeners connect with you online?
Sure. Well, you can put in basically two key words, Broken Shovel 802. That's the name of my business with my wife, Megan, and also the name of a podcast that I co-host with a friend, Eric. Broken Shovel 802 will just get you everywhere. And you'll be able to find most things. I believe our Instagram and TikTok are both Broken Shovel Farm, as well as Facebook.
Great. And when did you first become interested in your current career path?
Like homesteading and all of that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's so I grew up in a semi-rural area. It was always sort of
Mhm.
around me. I didn't really think much of it, I guess. And then close to 15 years ago, I met Meg at Portland, Oregon, which is very urban layout. And she really kind of brought me back into this thinking about where my food comes from and growing our own food. And we migrated down to California for about 10 years, or not 10 years, no, long less than that, but it doesn't matter. And then we kind of got to this point as we were watching, another financial crisis happened and housing prices and all of this stuff where we knew we had to be somewhere that was, a climate refuge, as well as somewhere where we could do our own thing, as well as afford a home. You can't. So just almost to the date, 5 years ago, we moved to the eastern side of Vermont. And we bought a house built in the late 1800s, which has been its own adventure. I was working in an office job and things like that, and I was just miserable. I was in this beautiful, wonderful place where we could do all these things. We had a great garden, and just over a year ago, Meg, said to me that we didn't move here for me to be sitting in an office. So now I've spent the last year and a half, close to it anyway, really branching out, no pun intended, just planting orchards, growing our own food as much as possible, getting involved in local government, starting farmers markets, working on the board of directors of other farmers markets, and really doing things that are important in such a small community.
This is great. I would ask how this lifestyle enriched this appreciation for nature and sustainability. And I have a personal interest in it because I'm releasing some online courses about sustainable drawing.
Fascinating. We work a lot with natural dyes here. So kind of piece of odd.
Well, I really think sustainability has everything to do with the arts. When I started learning to not learning but drawing professionally a few years ago, it was disturbing to know how things were very expensive and even not so eco-friendly. Besides, I'm an allergic woman, so I
Oh,
decided to do some research, and then the idea started.
what type of materials do you use to, like, you're making your own paints?
Yes, I make my own paints. I'm also making my own paper. Even the accessories, I'm trying to bring things from trash. Here I have some materials to start doing palettes and so on.
I love it. There's stuff. What I can see is gorgeous.
And this piece of art, the artwork I made to this podcast, I tried to bring some recycled materials to create the dyes and some techniques of collage, decoupage, all these kind
Yeah.
of, yes.
I gotta tell you, though, we get power outages here that last, I mean, for a very long time. So mostly that lantern behind you is speaking to me. We'll get a power outage that'll last close to 2 weeks. So
It's also recycled. I
yeah,
bring from the trash.
yeah, I like that one. So what type of material do you make your paints out of? You're using plants or are you using other materials?
I I try to use plants. Sometimes I research about other ways of making natural dyes, but basically plants and spices, some like turmeric,
Yeah.
they are great.
Yeah,
too.
absolutely. What climate are you in? What are you able to grow?
Well, as you know, this podcast is international and I'm based in Brazil. I'm
Brazil.
in a
Okay.
I'm in a tropical country. So we need to take care about the climate here.
Oh yeah.
Sometimes it's too hot,
Yes.
but I think I can do some natural dyes easily with.
Pomegranate would definitely be, I think it grows there. I don't know your climate as well as I know mine. Pomegranate, different tropical fruits are really lend themselves to it. What about
Avocado is great.
I've been saving avocado pits and avocado skins just for that. So yes, you are absolutely correct. Totally, totally amazing. I can't remember what color it makes. It makes like a light brown.
Oh yeah, it's a light brown. My working apron, it's I dyed with avocado. Well, this is my.
Oh, yep.
I'm still working on it, but it's also from avocado.
Onion skins too, like the onion paper makes a lovely color.
Well, the next question is about it. Eating from your own garden and preserving food for winter sounds like a rewarding endeavor. Can you share some of your favorite gardening and preservation techniques, as well as any memorable experience?
Sure. So homesteading is about self-sustainability, right? So,
Mhm.
it involves a level of self-sufficiency, subsistence agriculture, and like home food preservation and all of that. Essentially, I ask myself if what we're doing, if we drew a line around our property, which is 10 acres. It's not really big, but it's big enough. If we drew a line around that in some sort of, we just couldn't get out, could we survive? And we do we do our absolute best, I think, producing things that can very well. I really do love canning. It's one of my favorite things to do, is can tomatoes all day long. Um, and if as far as like experiences that are memorable, the severe impact of climate change we had on our growing season last year has really changed the way I'm thinking about approaching things. It's something that's coming up on the Broken Shovel podcast in the next couple of weeks, where we're talking about how do we plan for major weather events and continuing climate change. Last year here in Vermont, we were covered in smoke from the wildfires in Western Canada, as well as having well above average levels of rain, which, you'd think water, that's good for your plants, but it's not all, everything is about, getting things just right. So, now this year we're moving into making sure we have livestock and growing. We grow slowly. There's 11 chickens in the room with me right now. Uh, I don't know if you can hear them chirping or not. It's really just about like, can we take care of ourselves? And there's some folks in our town that are working very hard. Uh, because we're a town of less than 700 people. I think it was like 688 at the last census in my town. And so it can be quite close knit. So there are people that are working very hard to ensure that if climate change progresses and sustainability is part of survival, there's people around town that are working on being able to draw that same line I'm talking about around the town. Could this town survive? So I've kind of stumbled into a really fascinating place of everybody's got a garden, everybody's got chickens, everybody's taking care of each other. It's really amazing. I'm not sure if I actually answered your question.
For sure. And when you talked about the smoke, it reminded me the picture I saw in the news about the orange sky.
Mhm.
I was looking and I was thinking, if it's harmful for us humans, imagine the animals.
Yeah, it was really challenging. I'd have to ask my co-host. I don't think he had his chickens at that point, so he probably couldn't speak to, but to their health at that time. But I know I was having days that was very difficult to breathe while I worked. And a lot of what you're doing when you're gardening and planting trees and things like that is very labor intensive. And I would find myself out of breath very quickly. And I'm not old, but I'm not young, but I'm relatively healthy. So it was just sort of like, I don't know. It was a challenge for sure. And some days it just the smell would get to you, the lack of sunshine would get to you. It was especially upsetting for my wife, who grew up in California, where wildfires are very prevalent. It put her on edge on a pretty regular basis to smell smoke in the air.
For sure. Um, Based on all these path you are following in homesteading and sustainability, do you have any do you have any biggest failure, and what you learned from it? Oh,
Failures? Oh, too many to count. I gotta tell you, we were very unprepared for our first winter here. We've since made a lot of adjustments. There was midwinter, I would say 3 or 4 years ago, a power outage that lasted 12 or 13 days. Our heat at that time was entirely dependent on having electricity. So we did not have heat and we were in sub-zero temperatures, so Fahrenheit anyway. So we basically didn't leave our bedroom for several days. We piled every blanket that we could in there, had the dog in the bed with us. The the pipes were frozen, so we had to go get water because we couldn't pull from our own well. It was a real eye opener, very stressful, an interesting test to a relationship, I would say, for sure. um, just not being prepared for events like that. But I mean, as far as failures go, not really knowing how to fix something on my tractor. I have tripped and falled. I had one piece of machinery down for almost an entire year because I couldn't identify the problem. And I was, well, at the time, just too stubborn to ask for help. And, that kind of becomes the theme in a town this size, is that if you're not asking for help, you're not going to get it. And so I've learned those lessons of pride and things. But greatest failures, I don't know. I tried to plant peanuts in Vermont last year, which was very foolish. But it did not. It doesn't dissuade us. Meg really, she suggested we try okra this year because why not? The climate's changing. Might as well see what works here now.
Yeah. Well, this really uncommon to me to hear someone from these fields, just because I'm very urban too. I
Yeah,
think I would face these same challenges if I went to the fields. But in
it's hard
many
to know
things,
what to expect.
yeah, we always learn things by doing. I think I tell myself my favorite method of learning is trial and error.
Yeah,
That's one.
no one is better at failure than I am.
Yeah, let's talk about the theme, My Secret Garden. When I firstly released the theme, it was to talk about a space of reflection, a personal hobby, a personal sanctuary. My secret garden. I have many secret gardens, of course. One of my best is the music. I love to sing and to make music. It really makes me happy. And I tried to be a professional singer, but I was losing. When I started being a professional, I was losing this relationship and I decided to leave. Well, but how does your homestead serve as a sanctuary for you and your family? And what does it mean to cultivate your own piece of land in today's world?
I would say it was a renewal of our lives. It
Mhm.
was a point of starting over and making our own way in a place where we didn't know anyone and didn't know what we were doing. And now to be able to look around us at what we've accomplished in such a short amount of time is kind of, that is the the happy place of the secret garden, right? Like that's we were I don't want to say like reborn, but just sort of we got to restart with something new, but using a lot of the skills that we already had. Um, and really just forging forward and growing every year expands our sanctuary. So, when we started selling our brooms at farmers markets, that was just another place that was just a great place to be. And to start getting involved in the structures of those farmers markets and helping other farmers, that was another layer of protection and safety and sanctuary. And then join, like being able to know that our brooms are in people's homes and work for them, and things like that just really make the whole thing an ever expanding garden. So with no end in sight.
This is great, and it reminds me when I talk to other people, I really have a dream to live a simple life. And many people, when I say, oh, I want to live a simple life, they make some confusion. They think when we want to live a simple life, it means lack of ambition. It means we don't want to work. We don't want to make money. And I think they are wrong. So, what do you think about it? And this is an improvisation of this difference between simple life and lack of ambition. Are they the same for you, or are they different?
Well, I'm not sure how many, sort of cultural touchstones we might have in common for me to like draw a proper analogy, but simple life for us means simplifying where our food comes from, simplifying
Oh,
what
yeah.
we do for ourselves. And a simple life, or lack of ambition, as you put it, essentially lack of ambition to me means not being willing to do anything yourself and being more reliant on the structure that's already been built for you and pre-programmed for you, not to sound like a crazy person, but being able to order your food, have it at your home in, less than 30 minutes is feeds that lack of ambition and makes it harder to break away from it. We don't have the option to order food to our home other than, there is a beef farmer that is across the road from me, and that is as close as it gets to ordering food as we say, hey, I'm coming over to get some meat. But, it's, yeah, lack of ambition just means to me a lack of reliance. And, that's what sustainability and homesteading is really all about.
For sure. And I completely agree with you. Well, I started desiring a simple life since I watched a movie on Netflix called Minimalism.
Okay.
Well, many people as me wanted to live a simpler life. And I come from a family where I learned to always buy more and buy and buy. I'm from a middle class family, so and my father is the one in my family that I consider a hoarder. And I thought, I don't want this to my life. The more you hoard things from your past, the more attached to your past you are. And we need to keep moving.
Yeah, but
And
keep the mistakes in mind.
oh, for sure, keep the mistakes. But we don't need to keep all things from the past, the books and the notebooks. Oh, and I thought, I want to live a simpler life. I want to have an emptier house. And when I told this to my family, they started they looked at me and thought, are you crazy? What are you thinking? Do you want to be poor? Do you want to stop making money? And I said, no, I just want to live a meaningful life, do things that I love instead of just buying stuff, and hoarding.
Yeah.
And some people, they make this confusion.
Yeah, absolutely. But there's also, just to the other side of that, because, we do have what some would consider a simple life that, my lettuce is coming from my yard, my asparagus is coming from my yard. There's 800 seeds growing in my dining room right now to be
Oh,
waiting
wow.
to be planted, and 11 chickens behind me that are waiting to go outside. And the simple life is having a close
Yeah,
circle,
and
right?
yeah.
But I'm also, I'm a government employee. I am also starting a business. I am also starting a farmer's market. In front of me, you can't see, it doesn't look like I have a very simple life. I have two laptops in front of me because I have to like keep one doesn't fit into my laptop bag for when I have to travel to a meeting somewhere. If you were to look around me, that there's a chainsaw that needs repair laying on the floor of my office. It doesn't look simple.
Many chickens
Yeah,
uh, waking
but
you
it
up.
but it is the decision making processes each day are more simplified. What am I
Mhm.
going to do today? What I need to do, and keep going. And I'm fortunate enough to have a partner in my life that is supportive of me as much as I am of them. She's an artist as well. I would encourage you to check out the Instagram, the Broken Shovel Farm Instagram. She's a beautiful, just amazing artist. I don't think I have any of her pieces in here right now to show you, but you know, it's the team is important. I'm not saying that people can't do it alone, but having a support structure, which we have through her family too, that they are so into what we're doing and they come and visit as often as possible. Last year, my mother-in-law and my wife's younger sibling came and helped us double the size of our garden and plant it and get everything done. They stayed for 2 weeks and did nothing but work. So it's, you can't, you can be a hermit just disappear into the woods and have that sort of simplicity. But I love this simplicity of, having a community around me that is doing the same thing.
I would
I
say
sound like
that.
I'm trying to start a cult. I'm not.
No, it's not. I think since I started missioning a simpler life, well, I kind of connected more to myself.
Hmm.
I really feel I can show the world who I am, and but my life is a chaos too. I
Yeah.
can't deny. I'm starting to see my own business growing, and I'm happy for it. But it's too much work. I go to bed 2 a.m. almost every day, and I wake up at 7 a.m. But well, it's really good. It's really rewarding to see how uh, how great was this decision to follow my heart and ambitioning a more meaningful life. I don't say too simple, but more meaningful life.
I think they go hand in hand. I think if you're doing it right, one brings the other.
For sure. And who are the most influential people in your life?
Like in a day to day, or more of like a philosophically long term learning sort of thing.
Well, you can say both.
Well, day to day, I'd be nothing if it wasn't for my wife, Megan. She's quite often the one that she's the reason I get out of bed very often. But I mean, philosophically and sort of thinking back to, how I've been sort of over the years led to who I am now and why I'm happy with myself, I would say it's, as far as an author goes, I would say Kurt Vonnegut Jr. I really enjoyed his sort of satirical writing about the state of the world. Even before I fully understood the world, I found it really rewarding from a very young age. Since now deceased, I was lucky to see them perform several times live. But the stand up comedian George Carlin, someone who very much criticized the world around him and with supporting evidence and was able to get a laugh out of people at the same time. On a day to day basis around here, there is one individual. Her name is Deborah. She is the person who convinced me to run in local government. She is my guide in entering this position of town lister and my mentor in a lot of ways. And really, I just came from a school budget vote where I was just voting, but she was heavily involved, and she always is. And to be sitting in the audience of this like 4 towns coming together to vote in person by raising their hands, um, to and being able to see Deborah down on the floor and interacting and asking questions and criticizing our local government with good cause, is she's a major influence for me at this point, locally in my town.
Well, I always do this question to my guests, and it's incredible. I'm making a little research. I think around 90% of my guests say my parents.
Oh, really?
And
I don't have a relationship with my own family. I rely very heavily on my spouse's family. So it's like my parents weren't good people. So I'm glad to not have their influence.
oh yeah. And 20% is the significant other, or the husband, the wife, depending on the person. And but it's family anyway. No matter if it's your mother, your father, or in your case, your wife, it's family. And well, I always tell the same story, but I will tell one more time. When I studied theater, I remember the teacher told me we should think ourselves as trees, and each branch of this tree is a family member, a friend, someone we met in our life and influenced us. It's really beautiful.
Yeah.
I think when I thought about it, I think I could understand better my parents and even my sister, because sometimes I thought I was like from another planet, and no, I bring a little piece of each of them in my heart. And of course, when I meet new people or start new experiences, they are there. They are always there in me, not only with me.
That's beautiful.
Well, soon being elected to the board of listers in your town
Yes. Oh, go
is a
ahead.
leadership of position.
Specifically, it's a very uniquely Vermont thing, a board of listers. I'm part of the board of listers. And so basically what a lister does is we're an elected official who determines the fair market value of a property and converts that value into an assessment used to calculate the sounds so boring, to calculate the tax bills of the citizens. So we literally go door to door, we ask to come in, we sort of value the property based on improvements that have been made to the property. If you put up a barn and you're now running a business out of that barn, then your property is automatically worth more. And so your taxes or your assessed value may go up. We don't decide tax rates or anything like that. Nothing. It sounds so boring, but it really is. But we get very involved with the people and helping them navigate their taxes. Sometimes on a state level, we work with the board of listers of the state, and the main task of a lister that Deborah, who I mentioned before, put to me is to provide equity, to make sure that everyone is coming from the same level. There, everybody is starting from the ground up. It's very important. Part of my oath I had to take is to be fair and to be reasonable, and not to take, just because I if there's somebody in town that I don't like, I'm not going to I'm not going to manipulate the system so that their taxes go up so they have to move out of town. I can't do that. I'm not going to do that. But so the board of listers, and I'm on a 3-year term. We deal with mapping and making sure property lines are correct. So we are more of a support of the community than a leader of the community. We're here to make sure that no one is taken advantage
Oh, well, this I think you intend to make a very positive impact through your position from what you're saying.
It's very unique. I don't know if it's done in other places around the world or anything. I really haven't looked into that, but it's in the United States. We're the only place that does it.
I think so. I pay many taxes. I come from a country that has the more taxes around the world. And well, I wish it could be simpler to start a business here. But all of us must start informally. I don't know if I could tell tell it, but if we want to start a business, we need to not to pay taxes, but make money, some savings before paying taxes. Is the safest way?
Yeah, when I speak about like our home and thinking about our taxes coming down the road, we're always having to think 1 year ahead. We're right now, our taxes for this year are paid for our property and for the education tax in town and things like that. But we're already saving for 2025. You understand? So we are taxed very heavily, mainly for our education tax. It's odd to me, having lived in different places around the country, because we don't have trash removal, we don't have sewers, we don't have like town water. Everything's on the well, on your own property. You're responsible for all of those things. So it is great until something breaks.
But here we pay taxes for everything around 20, 30. If I tell you, I think only the air is not taxed, but the other things.
Wow.
And what inspires you to do what you do or keep doing what you're doing?
Well, if I'm being really honest, it's usually dinner. Being able to, get your ingredients from your neighbor if you're not able to provide them for yourself is like a profound feeling. At this meeting I was at today, to have one of our neighbors, say like, well, let me know as soon as you have eggs, because I will walk over and come get eggs from you. I will give you money for your eggs, and but it's that sort of, dinner, that thing that we made together, that thing that is older than the plate that is in front of me, being able to, make a huge made a huge batch of spaghetti sauce to put in the freezer, and we were pulling tomatoes out of the pantry that were from our garden the previous year, and it's just satisfying. It is like it's the reward at the end of a hard day to have dinner.
And I love to eat fried eggs.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm
Full of
thinking about
protein.
it, sorry. Okay, and homesteading
Mhm.
often involves a deep connection to traditions and self-sufficiency. How do you balance traditional practices with modern innovations and sustainability principles in your homesteading lifestyle?
Well, I mean, obviously, I have a tractor, so that is the modern side of things. But we don't use pesticides. We like plant to prevent pests. Here we have not only, insects and small vermin, but we also have deer and bears. So we have to plan for all of these different levels, and there's ways to do that. Uh, in the garden, if I want to prevent insects, well, our ducks are going to do that. Our ducks are going to patrol the garden and eat all the bugs. Additionally, if you were to picture a perfectly rectangular garden, on
Mhm.
each corner and then again in the middle on each side is a birdhouse. And those birds crisscross to catch flying insects, which the ducks can't get. So now the deer, we're going to going up the level here, right? The deer, we use what we call a trap crop, which can be used for insects as well, where we plant something away from our garden that is very appealing to the deer. Berries, wild things, just let that grow over there, where what the deer naturally pursue is easy for them to access. They don't come into the garden. Same goes with the bears. Trap crops. I have a grapevine at one end of the property and then a field of wild berries of multiple kinds. And we'll look out on that field and we'll see a bear just happily sitting on its butt eating berries and not coming anywhere near what we've worked hard on. So, as far as sustainability goes, you start considering ways to not be reliant on the structures that have been built that we're supposed to be reliant on. My manure comes from the beef farmer I mentioned earlier across the road. I drive my tractor over there, I scoop up a bunch of cow poop, and I drive right back. It's just, so, and that's my compost, that's my fertilizer. So it's there's a lot of ways to do these things without being reliant on the supply chain and things like that. If that makes sense, if that answers your question.
For sure. And what are three unique skills that helped you become successful?
I'm still hesitant to say that I'm successful or that we're successful.
Okay.
But, well, again, it comes down to the partnership I have with Meg. And, we each bring very different things to the table. We are not alike in very many ways. She's a genius. I am not. I can, she is an artist, and the things that she makes that we put on our website, bring to farmers markets and things like that. She is the fire in the furnace, so to speak. I am more willing to be out in the front and talking about what we're doing and telling people why we're excited about it and trying to get other people excited about it. Other than that, it's a level of perseverance. Now, there are days where we are dragging ourselves out the door because we're tired, because things aren't going our way, and it's hard. And that perseverance becomes paramount. It becomes the most important thing that we can do. So I would say, recognizing my weaknesses is much better than recognizing my strengths.
Totally. Well, I appreciate that, and I feel really lucky to meet some guests from successful families because, well, I'm single, but I'm not 100% single. And nowadays, when I restarted the dating game, because of my therapist, she told me, you shouldn't give up.
Right. No, I agree.
I really look for someone who partners me in many projects. I really don't want someone to, I don't know, to just to show on social media, look, I love him, but it's to be a partner. And at the end of the day, I also see my parents. Partnership is the name of the game.
Yeah. Well, one thing I'm realizing as I get older is, I had a checklist for a lot of many years of like what the right person would be and things like that. And now when I look back at it, and the night I really met Meg, she took me out of my comfort zone right away. I don't dance. I don't know how to explain that, but I don't like, hey, let's go out and dance kind of person, which might seem very strange to someone from South America.
Me neither. I'm not
that,
good.
that very night, she had me in this like East night dance party thing, and I was immediately improved by her presence. And of course, I didn't realize that until a decade and a half later. Really realized the nitty gritty of it. But the checklist kind of, I think, did me a disservice for a lot of years, but it also kept me from hitching my wagon to someone who was not Meg.
This is great. Well, and I must tell you, I don't like Carnival. It's the most famous party of my country. I know. Well, last Carnival, I went to I made a trip, a road trip with my parents, and the destination was great. But what enchanted me more was the path. I saw too many farms and cows and horses. Something I don't see every day. And my father was looking at me. I didn't know you would be passionate about the green landscapes. And I told him, I don't see this every day. To me, it's something new and fresh. Green, it's so beautiful. I really
What,
love it.
just out of curiosity, so it's Portuguese in Brazil.
Yes,
Is the dominant language. What is it similar to Spanish?
very
Verde?
similar. Yes, it.
Green is verdant.
Yes, the same word in Spanish is verde, and in Portuguese verde. It's the
Okay,
same
very
word,
similar.
but the pronunciation is different.
So Vermont is a combination of two words, which is verdant and mont for mountain in French. So Green Mountains, it's the Green Mountain State, and it truly is. You get up on a hill and it's just green as far as the eye can see.
I didn't know that. This is beautiful. And I love to do gesture drawing. Let me explain. We stay with a little sketchbook and start drawing some landscapes. I don't know if you see the
Yeah, I
landscapes.
can make that out a little bit. Yeah. Uh,
But
I can really
I
only draw one thing, and I'm going to do it real quick here. The other thing that I love sharing with people from, especially, well, mostly from around the country, because that's most of my experience, but I did a poor job of it. But yes, I always draw the same mountain with the same birds flying by. It's the only thing I can draw. Billboards, like the large advertising boards,
uh-huh.
are not allowed in Vermont. So as you're driving across the country and across the landscape, there is no ad for McDonald's. There's nothing. It is just you and nature. That's just such a great bonus.
For sure. And sometimes I saw myself catching the sketchbook to draw the landscapes. I think it's much better than getting my phone and taking pictures.
Yeah.
The pictures will stay there months and years, but this is a unique experience.
Yeah.
I love it.
I don't have the same gift as you or Meg, because she can, she's just absolutely stuff. Check out the Instagram. It's got some of her pieces on there. She doesn't put a lot up there, but what's there is amazing.
Great. I'll definitely see her Instagram. Give me and
I can email all the links to you and all that stuff. But yeah, so what else do you want to know? I'm an open book.
okay. Well, your podcast. Let's talk
Oh,
about
sure. Yeah.
it.
Yes. Broken Shovel Homesteading for a Sustainable Future. It is the brainchild of myself and a good friend Eric is the co-host. Each week we tackle a different topic with the idea that we're going to zoom in on the problem, how it affects us locally, and zoom out on the problem as it affects us globally in relation to climate change, homesteading, and sustainability. So a good example might be we had some catastrophic floods this past summer, made the news, the whole thing. I lost my road, the whole bit. But we talked about those floods in depth and how they affected us here. But we also talked about why they happened as such an anomaly and floods that we're seeing around the world that are also caused by environmental anomalies as we go further and further into climate change. So, we talk about homesteading for a sustainable future, and that is probably the last third of our show where we talk about our own homesteads, what we are doing, what we are working on, why our philosophy is focused that way. We probably live 30 miles from each other if you were to draw a straight line, but we both live in very different sort of places. He is much closer to a highway and grocery stores and things like that than I am. If I was to go to a grocery store, it's going to take me close to an hour to get there, and then, an hour of shopping and then an hour home. So, things are a little bit different in that. I work on my homestead full time. This is my livelihood. Eric has a full time job and then also supplements his family. He's got two kids and sort of sense their income or reduces their income and, as he puts it, a reliance on capitalism by growing food at home and things like that. I finally convinced Eric to start selling some wares at a farmer's market that I'm starting. But it's really, the show is about climate change, how it affects our backyards here in Vermont, how it affects the globe, and what those similarities are. When you look at massive flooding in China or drought in China and compare that to drought or flooding in other parts of the world, we can also show it on a much smaller scale in Vermont and talk about how it's affecting us and how we plan to move forward and be able to continue to produce. If I was to give a very long answer as to what the podcast is about.
No, this is really interesting because I think all Americas are under effects of El Nino.
Currently, yeah.
Yeah, since last winter here starts in June. You must know, the weather is basically two heat wave and rainy week, and well, it must. It's not so uncommon here to have heat waves, but even for us, the heat waves were really were terrible. I must say, last summer we had 62 degrees Celsius.
So that's a little over 100 Fahrenheit. I can't remember. I'm bad at that.
I think it's about it.
43 Fahrenheit. I apologize. That is
okay,
substantial.
But it's too hot for even for us, and many people were suffering from too much sun exposure. And also I saw some people who died from these during these heat waves. It was a really and climate change. It exists. That's all I can say. Many people say, "Oh, they don't exist," but I know
they're among the stupidest people on this planet. But to speak really frankly, it's around us every single day. I'm of an age where I was sold through a level of propaganda that it was my responsibility to stop climate change, while giant corporations continued to churn out the exact opposite, while also buying advertisement during the Super Bowl or whatever sports event, telling us that it was if I didn't recycle, the planet was going to burn. Where it turns out, no, it was our legislatures, it was our government, it was the corporations that were selling a false bill of goods to tell you how to defeat something that they knew they were contributing to. And, Eric and I very firmly believe that, we are entering into end stage capitalism. This is no longer sustainable. When a bunch of, and to get a little dark, but when a bunch of very wealthy people died in a submarine that collapsed in tourism undersea. I can't even remember the name of the submarine, but globally people were laughing and celebrating the death of these people who were so wealthy that they were going on a tour to the bottom of the ocean. And that's a bad sign for those with money and in power. And you can do a lot of things. Myself, Eric, we have chosen to try to remove ourselves from that system as much as possible, not in a way of protest, not like one of those crazy people that like stockpile ammunition or anything like that. But the world is changing. And if you're not anticipating that next change, then you are going to be left behind. You are going to suffer. You are going to have a lot more challenges. And if I can build a place in my town where people know me and they can get help, then I've done something good in the world and done the exact opposite of what the sort of capitalistic steamroller has done. Anyway, I got riled up.
Okay, and well, let's go to a better sides of this episode. But I must say, this whole episode has been great. What's your way of showing up for yourself every single day?
Working out in the morning. I gotta. Yeah, we both will work out in the morning. Nothing crazy. I'm still overweight. But yeah, getting up and doing that, and then we make breakfast together, and we have the same breakfast every day: oatmeal and 2 slices of bacon. And getting to go and then going for a hike together, and it's almost like a meeting, and we're you know we're able to talk about what's going on with us and internally and externally and things like that. And having that ritual with Meg has made me a better person and made me realize that I, as you put it, should show up for myself.
Well, it's a great way to start the day, I must say. Oh, in my case, I read, I do my yoga, I do my prayers, and it really helps me to start the day. But all of us, in a certain way, we have different morning routines. I remember as a millennial how people were obsessed with morning routines. We should make wake up at 5 a.m. and do physical exercise and drink green juice. That's BS. Each of us has a different way to start the day. That's okay.
Yeah, absolutely. There's parts of my day that are so great because now we our only heat source is from burning wood. So all through the sort of fall and the winter, getting up in the morning, and while Meg has got the dog and the cat in the bed with her and everybody's warm and cozy, and I come downstairs and I'm building a fire and warming up the house, starting our tea and things like that is just so, I don't know, it's gratifying. It's just a great part of the day where, I'm still half asleep and I'm kind of shuffling around, but I'm like picking up logs, I'm touching the trees that are heating us, and there's just something really satisfying about it. And then having our animals and my beautiful wife come down and be warm and be able to enjoy her tea and things like that. It's not for them, it's for me. I get to do it.
Okay, it's priceless. It's all I can say. On the board for a farmer's market and
Mhm.
starting one in your town, it demonstrates a strong commitment to local food systems. Can you
Mhm.
share some of the challenges and rewards of these endeavors?
Well, up until a recent addition to the board that I'm on in a neighboring town, I was at 46 years old, the youngest person on the board. And, it's challenging in that you're trying to say, like, well, there's better ways to do this. There's more efficient ways to have these meetings. There's ways that we don't have to drive 20 miles to talk to each other. So that's definitely a challenge. But the the relationships that I've built at the market itself, because I am a vendor member of the board, which is to say I pay dues to be there and to sell our brooms, but I represent the other vendors that are at that market and also pay to be there and have things go. So I'm there as a representative of a lot of different people, a lot of farms, very diverse group of people. And that has been tremendously rewarding, wandering around the market, getting to know everybody, getting to know what they do, what they want to do. It's fantastic. And in Vermont, I'm sure there's other similarities nationally and globally, but having programs here that if you are on food assistance, you can go to the market manager with your card for food assistance, and we can double the amount of your buying power at that market. So if you only had $10 to buy vegetables or meat from your neighbors in a local food system, we make it worth 20 And it's a win-win situation through this state-run program, because not only is someone on food assistance getting twice the amount for themselves and their family, but the farmer is getting twice the income. So it's a fantastic program. It takes a lot of work, but it to get it in place, it's tremendously rewarding to be able to know that everybody wins.
And this intergenerational challenge I also face in my creative role. I was not been an artist all the time. I was a lawyer.
Oh, wow, big change.
But the courthouse life and all the vanity among among us were make me depressed. I was not feeling good. And then I made some therapy, and here I am at graphic design and illustration, and I'm happy here.
Yeah, that's
But
awesome.
when I started the transition, I was the oldest person in the room, and it was a true challenge. But it was wonderful because I feel blessed to be a bridge between two generations. Many people think the generations after mine, they are all the same, and this is not true. We talk different languages sometimes. But well, if we open our minds to learn something from them, and we also are open to teach something to them, and it's also available to older people too, the eldest generations. I think our life will gain more sense, and we it enriches our life experience. I'm sure it's this intergenerational experience, and
It is. I can't say that it isn't.
we go outside the box.
Well, one of the people that I have formed the strongest relationship with on that board, she founded that market 50 years ago.
Wow.
So she was on the team of people that brought it into being 50 years ago, and has worked for decades in local food. And she's a gardener. She works and helps other people with their growing processes, um, and is very excited to join this new market that we're starting here in Vershire. And there's something very, I think, mutually rewarding between her and I, that she is in her late 70s, early 80s, I believe, and still working every day, still going to markets and selling, her jams and jellies and plant starts. And she's teaching me how to do it, for to be able to continue to pass that torch. And she's a tremendous inspiration to start my own market. And when there were other farmers in the room at a recent meeting, they didn't realize that I was starting to the market, and the farmer started to sort of go, "Did you hear about this market they're trying to start?" And this person knew, and I knew, and a couple other people knew, and that people weren't, this particular farmer wasn't very excited for the competition. Maybe it was, but I don't see it that way. But yeah, that is just so the intergenerational reward of having something taught to me is really, really very cool. And she's always trying to get me to fix her computer because she thinks I'm young. I must know how to do that. So
I know this. I had a neighbor for 15 years, and she is still alive. She's 88 years old, and I was the only one that could fix some computers, because her daughter, her only daughter, she was 2 years younger than my mother. I was always there, and I always had a piece of cake as a payment for the computers. It was great.
yeah, it's wonderful. But yeah, there's a lot of rewards in that. I've learned intergenerational communication based on my age. I'm in that Generation X, house where, we grew up without the internet, and then we're able to like learn it at young enough age. And we're sort of in this middle ground where nobody really knows we exist, but we're about to take over the world. So,
And well, our conversation is great, but we are coming to our last questions.
okay.
Selling goods at farmers markets. I think I how do you see your role as a homesteader contributing to the broader sustainability and resilience of your community?
Well, obviously we reduce carbon footprints if people are buying goods from us. I make a number of food items, which sort of removes them from uh, an extra trip to the grocery store, which reduces carbon footprint. There's also an element to our presentation at a market. Meg is while I'm sort of talking to the people and selling things and doing that part of the business, she's right next to me making a broom and talking to people about how to make brooms. And yes, this is something that you can do yourself. Obviously you could just buy it now, but we practice what we preach. We're showing what we're doing at the same time. We make extraordinary efforts to source locally for everything if we can't produce it ourselves. I make a lot of hot sauces, and those are grown by me, the peppers and things like that. But as far as sustainability goes, it keeps things smaller for people. And if it's encouraging people to come back to these markets for their goods instead of going to a chain grocery store where there's any number of levels of unethical treatment of food, then I feel like we've won.
And I think you already answered this question, but what what's your end goal?
Say that again.
What's your end goal?
Our end goal? Gosh, I don't know. I really don't know. Keep growing. Hope that the world catches up with this sort of philosophy, and hope that our community continues to be as sustainable as it is, so that we can stop one day and spend more time teaching than doing, and things like that. With the farmers market, I'm starting one of my, whatever, come on in, sell some stuff. But one of my primary goals is to have students and youth having tables for free to sell their own goods, which is to teach them how to start and run a business using local goods, with the hopes that they find it speaks to them and they can find success in that, and they will stay in this community of people as a local producer of goods or art or whatever it might be. And to have I have one student signed up right now for our market, which starts in, 5 weeks, that is using the maple syrup from the trees on his family's property to make a maple cotton candy. And I spoke to his mother last night, and this kid is just like super excited, really looking into health regulations and all of the rules that they're supposed to do, and being able to answer their questions back and forth and things like that. That's if I can get one member of the student community to really want to stay here and produce and sort of carry that tradition on, I would be so happy.
It's a uh, it's a great goal, and I think when you told about maple, it reminded me of a public speaking group in French. I sometimes take part. It's from Canada, and
Oh yeah.
one of the themes were maple syrup. I was feeling a fish out of water. I learned a lot about maple and how it's produced. It's really interesting, but I must confess I was feeling lost.
It is. I don't make we don't make our own syrup. We buy from the community. We buy from a neighbor because that's important. If but we I am growing some of those trees now on the property, but they won't be ready to tap, so to speak, to get the sap, which then gets boiled down to the syrup, which is just one of the best treats you could have in the whole world. It goes on my oatmeal every day.
And I think it's really interesting to know that Japanese people know more the maple than South Americans. I remember I tried only once
Yeah,
maple, but I told this story to my Japanese friend, and she told me it's really common to see maple candy and
hmm,
pie in Japan. Oh,
yeah.
I'm like, my God, why? We are at the same part of the planet.
Well, yeah, but not so much, of course, right? But I think a lot of what you're going to find in Japan, though, is imported from Canada and New England. Oh, the little chickens are making noises. But yeah, I'm not aware of Japanese maple production. I'd be very curious to look at that because that'd be something fun to
I
talk
didn't
about.
think.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Because I was going to say that'd be really fun to talk about on the podcast. Yeah. So I don't know. I kind of forgot what we were talking about when we started talking about maple syrup.
Okay, but yeah, sometimes some things grow in my mind. We were talking about end goals, and now the second last question is about it.
Okay.
Looking ahead, what are your aspirations and goals for your homesteading journey and your involvement in local agriculture?
So we, we've sort of been building up the structure around our property of, we now have somewhere in the neighborhood of 30 apple trees. We are working quite steadily at planting an endangered tree here in North America, the American chestnut. We're growing one from seed right now, even. It was logged into oblivion during colonization of North America to build log cabins and things like that. It's a great building material, but also a very beautiful and wonderful tree. We are, after several years of sort of trying to restore this property. Previous owner did not have that in mind. They did not farm or garden or anything here. It was just mowed to grass. It looked like a golf course when I moved here. We are now venturing into having animals. This year it's primarily poultry with chickens and ducks. As we continue to grow, we will be bringing on goats and pigs and using those things to make more for ourselves, to be able to butcher a pig, to have our meat for the year, to make milk, get milk and make cheese from the goats, that sort of thing is kind of our major next steps to grow not only here but to grow our business and be able to share, be able to sell more brooms, to be able to afford pigs and fences and things.
And the last question, the official last question, can you tell us one thing about yourself that most people aren't aware of?
Boy, I don't know. I tend to be pretty open about stuff. It's a pretty terrible depression and anxiety, I think, because, society tells us to sort of hide that. I talk about it pretty openly on the podcast now and how it affects the work, and the long winters here affect it. I'm a terrible public speaker because of very bad anxiety, and some of the closest people to us here in Vermont are way more supportive of that, knowing me as an individual now. So it's not exactly a secret, but it depends on how well you know me, I guess. But I have definitely struggled with depression, definitely struggled with anxiety, still do on a pretty regular basis. But, getting up and speaking when I was being elected to my position, that wonderful woman I mentioned earlier, Deborah, like she got up and she talked about me first to introduce me, and she does, that's not part of the procedure of the vote in the town. And she got up to talk about why I was in the room, and she sort of knocked down some of those walls without embarrassing me, I guess. And that's just such a wonderful thing to have. Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's not exactly a secret, but it's not exactly open, I guess. I get to walk out my door into the verdant landscape filled with animals and everything else, but it doesn't mean that I'm not depressed. So for what that's worth. I think that's what most people don't know about me.
Okay. Well, it's I know how anxiety and depression can be terrible to our lives. That's why I made the transition. I told you. And the bonus question:
Oh,
daycare stores always open to you. Would you come back if you could?
absolutely. And I would actually really love to. I don't know how often you do like group stuff, but I would love to have, gosh, my hair just did something crazy there. I would love to bring along the co-host on my podcast, Eric. He is an amazing individual and really very passionate about climate change and really there's not many people like him.
Okay. Oh, it will be a great experience, and I hope you really come back. So thank you very much for taking part of this. I wish you the best
Thank you.
in your projects, and see you next time.
Yeah, thank you so much. And what little of your work I can see, you're very talented. I'm very impressed, and thank you for having me.
You're welcome.